Okay, so yesterday, we got through these items. So we created a school class, and then from the school class, we were able to load in all of our data, our CSV data. So yeah, I'm not going to go over it too much again because it's in yesterday's video. So we created objects from the data, students and staff, and then we pretty much saved the objects in the school class, or in the school object. I'm just gonna say instance. Okay. So now what our next point will be to create this menu. I will take it straight from here because it's already written out. So in the runner, okay, so this should print out the entire menu. I'm not going to print out the students' names or these anymore. Okay, so it says, what would you like to do? And it gives us all the options. There's I think if I put, no, not that. Okay, I think if you put 3, you can actually do, you can put your strings on different lines and it will all count towards the same one. So you don't have to do all of this. So that's like a different way of formatting. So what would you like to do? Options. Oh, yeah, this autocomplete thing is really, it's interesting. Okay, I'm just gonna see what happens here. Okay. So yeah, however you format it here, it could print out here if you use the three string 3 quote marks. But for now, this one's working, so I'm just gonna keep it as it is. Okay, so we need to get an input from the students or from whoever's using this program. So what should we add here? How would we get the input? We can have this as a collaborative thing since there's not too many of us.
Probably something like selection equals input, open parentheses, make your choice.
Oops.
Input, yeah.
Input.
Make your choice, colon, space.
Mm-hmm. We can do that, and we can also just put this entire line in there, actually. Okay, there we go. Copy. If we want.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's also a possibility.
Oh, that's cool. Yep, I get that. Yep.
Yeah. So now I can input 1, and since I'm not doing anything with it, the program just exits. Okay, so we have our 5. No, it is 5. Okay. Our 5 cases of our selection. So one way of doing this is if statements, if selection equals 1. Oops. And I believe this has to be a string because when the input comes in, it will take it as a string. Actually, no, I think if it's just a singular digit, it will know that it's yeah, it's a number, but we'll test it out. So we're just gonna print selection. I'm also gonna turn off this. I know people mentioned it, so I installed it to check it out, but it's not.
Do you think it's helpful or is it just distracting because of your experience?
It's giving me wrong wrong suggestions. So I feel like it's more hassle than it is. Okay, so it takes it as a string. Let me check if it's just a one, if it will print it out. I'll check with one. Okay, so it is taking it as a string. So we can do this and then just have else if statements and stuff like that. But yeah, so that's one way. I could also use a like a switch case type thing where we do match and then the cases. Either one of them would work. So if I do match, I think forgetting the syntax here, but oh wow, it is pretty predictive. I was using an old Python. Okay, so yeah, we can do cases, we can do if statements. I'm gonna do cases here. This is also a string. Case two. And so for the first option, what do we want to do? List all students. So we'll just stay with case one. Here we want to create a function that lists the students. And so in our runner, the only object that we really have access to is the school. So we would probably need to create a function that says list all students. So when you're like flow wise, you can kind of type this out here, and then because this is where you need it, you're writing your case, you say, oh, okay, I need a function in my school class that will list students. So I can now go into my school class and create that. Students, and wow, this really does. Okay, interesting. It's a predictor, so it predicts your next line of code. So yeah, to list all students, I would just need to return the students list from the school, and then I can print it out here. Also, yeah, this is a better way. I personally wouldn't put the print statements inside the school because it narrows down how you can use the method. So if you're just returning the actual list, then you can just print it out here. So I can say
it's really helpful to hear your thinking through all this. Yeah, it's helpful to have you tell us what your choices are and why you're choosing one over the other.
I'm glad. I'll keep doing it. So.
And I guess, in all of this, whether it's today or tomorrow or next week, I really enjoy hearing why you say this is a choice. And I kind of like to know myself, I would like to kind of, prove several of those choices, or execute several of those different ways of doing things just to learn. As I've done a lot of work with Power BI, and I've always liked to kind of make that first sheet just an expression of basic data. How many tables do we have, and how many records in each table, and what's the sum total of all column or the first column or whatever it is? But
yeah,
kind of helps me get my head around what we're doing.
That makes sense. Yeah, I try as much as I can to mention all the different ways. There are probably even more ways than I know. But yeah, so now we retrieve the list of students and then we loop through that list and we want to print out maybe just the student name. that's probably all we care about. Oops.
And this is more than the name, it's in the student's entire record or only his name, that person's name.
It's not really defined, like, it's not really defined which we should do.
Okay. Could you
Actually,
then show also, could you print first, last, and
you could.
what's the, so would it be student name, plus student last or whatever, student ID?
Yeah, yeah. So if I wanted to do all of that, I could just do a student, like the string dunder method. So this will make it probably easier to just, I'm gonna return a string. What should I do? Maybe name. Uh-huh.
Yeah, name, ID, just to demonstrate and prove that concept for me. There you
Yeah.
go. There you go. That's all I would need, ID and then student ID.
Yeah.
Yep.
Student ID. Oh, well, it filled it all for me, so we can just
Sure. Yep.
see. Maybe not the password. And I guess the role might be useful, but maybe not. So now we can go back to the runner and then just print out the student itself. And let's see what it does. So we're going to choose one.
But one was given. Take 0 positional. So do you need to do
school? No, was it student? Because I think it needs self.
Yep.
That's what I forgot. One, there we go. Oh, so what did I forget to do here?
What do you forget to do?
Input the actual thing inside the string, like the F, and then put student
Yeah.
inside.
I didn't format it. I'm just printing out the word self.name instead of oops. Instead of actually putting it in as a variable. So now if I run it, there we go. So now I'm getting all the information that I need. Yeah, that's number one done.
So is it simple then to how would you print one name and press return, press return and get the second name, press return and get the third name and fourth name and fifth name, or groups of 3? And if it's too hard or not
So with that
germane
one,
to this,
so if you maybe inside the case one, maybe you have you could have the number of students in this list, so you can grab the length, and then if you want to loop through like every 3 or every 1, you can have a different variable. Just you can
how about it? Okay, yeah, could we just do that? Just in a moment here, we're going to show you 5 students, or there are 5 students we're going to present, or 6, whatever it is. So how could you also count these them and display that in that same method?
So the count will be, so you can print out student list.
Dot length.
Yeah, I think it's actually length of.
Yeah, length dot, yeah, or length, yep. Okay. So that's also that will tell us then there are 5 students and here they are, 6 students and here they are.
Yeah, exactly. So this one,
So
if I put 1, I mean, I didn't.
yep.
But yeah, so this
Yep.
is giving me 6. Yeah. So that's the length is something that you would probably use quite often when you're writing your programs. So keep in mind that you can use it.
Gotcha.
Okay, so I'm not gonna break. And then let's do case 2. So for the second one, we want to view individual students using the student ID. So if case 2, then what should we do here?
Display the students and offer them and give a choice to choose one, right?
Yeah.
So when we do all of case number 1 and give the opportunity to select one of many?
We could, yeah. So that comes down to a design choice. So if you want your user interface to be a little more friendlier, it would probably be better for you to print out the students with their IDs, to see that. I guess it depends on the interface, because if someone's looking up, you don't want to give people access to everyone's ID, but if they're
Sure.
looking for a specific person with a specific ID, then that would be fine.
So in this case, then we'd be expected to run case number 1, remember a name, and then we enter it in line or in case number 2.
Yes. So no, and here we're putting in a student ID, and then we're pulling a student based on the ID, and then we're outputting that student.
But if we choose 1, we show a list of all students. And if we choose 2,
Yes.
we have a chance to read the details of one student, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, so number 1 would actually just give us, it would give us that straight. What am I doing? Okay.
Student details, or what is this?
So I would say I would want to get the ID first, because
Okay.
they already chose this option, which means that they're ready with a student ID. So
Yeah.
ID equals, I can get some input from the user saying, I don't know.
Please select an ID, or please enter an ID.
Yeah, please input a student ID number. Okay, so the ID should be there. I'm just gonna copy this one so I can test it out later. I'm gonna put it over here. And with this ID, I am going to need to grab a certain record from the student, or from our list. So again, since in this interface we only have access to our school, that means we should probably, I'm gonna say student record equals cp.getStudent. That's actually, yeah, I take it back about this. It's cool. That's pretty predictive. So the student record, and then we can just print student record. Okay, so this should be done here. All we have to do is implement the actual get student. So we'll go back to school. Here we can define get student, and then it will be self, and then ID.
And refresh my memory, initialize student, initialize staff is entering a student or staff ID.
No, so initialize students and initialize staff will initialize these lists.
Gotcha. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, and each one of them goes through the CSV and stuff like that in the actual student class.
Okay.
Okay, so to get student, what should we use here?
Oh, get student.
Can we use a filter of some sort?
What, so how would
By
we
ID.
use this? So I think for the filter method, we might need to do, let me see. I think it's filter. Okay, so we have to send in lambda function, or just any function that will allow us to do the actual filtering. And then the second parameter is going to be our student list, an iteratable object. So self dot students. I do think that if you, there's self dot I forget the syntax. The students dot filter. No, that is, oh, that's because I spelled it wrong. No, it's not a function. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. So in here, I can send in a lambda. It will take, for filter, I believe it takes one argument. And then, hold on, I need to look up the syntax for this. If you guys remember.
Yeah, you could do like lambda x colon and then x would be whatever student object we're looking
Okay.
at, and then dot.
ID or
Yeah, ID.
school ID or something like that. Let me see. Student has student ID. So x dot student ID equals ID. That seems right.
I think so. Yeah, and then return that. Yep.
Okay. So this, that, let's test it out and see what happens. So when this runs, we should be able to get the student record and just print it out. So number 2, and this is our ID that we grabbed from earlier. Filter object. Okay, so it's returning an object, but it's not cast properly. I think we might have to do student, like to cast it as a student. No, this creates a new student.
Can you go back and talk about this term cast again? And I know what that means in the SQL world, but I don't know that I understand how you're using it here.
So to cast something as something else is if you have a certain an object of a certain type and you want it to present as a different type. So if you have a string 1, like a number 1 in a string, you can cast it as an int, and then it transforms it pretty much as an integer, and you can use it as an integer everywhere else.
Don't they also call casting when you import a library, import math? Can't you do like as m or something?
Yeah.
Isn't that also called casting?
It might be. I think I've heard it more used as like using an alias for that name, but it could be that could be a term that's used as well.
Okay.
I think this might be list. Okay, so now we have a list of this. So filter returns a list, or it returns a filter type list. So we need to cast it as a list to get the objects that we want. So I'm going to I'm gonna just say filtered equals this. Oops. And then filtered at the first index, because it's just going to be a list of 1. And it should return just the 1 object, and we should be able to print it out. We'll do that. Oops. This is not what I wanted to do. Ah, I forgot that I can't do the up thing. I don't know why I was trying. Runner 2. I'm gonna put the input. Also, you notice here that it's like sticking to it, and it's kind of annoying. So you can either put a space. I'm gonna put a new line, just so it's better. Okay, so we're able to pull out that record. That's awesome. What happens if we input a non-valid ID? So how can we handle that? Where should we handle that? So if
Say
we
that,
uh-huh.
say that one more time.
So right now, if we put a valid ID, we're able to get the student record. But what if we don't input a valid ID? What if I had and just anything else other than a valid ID, like a string or just numbers that were not in our list?
Could put it in that function as some
Mhm.
sort of try catch or if else. You know, if it doesn't exist, then return, you know, student doesn't exist or invalid entry or something.
So there's probably a few ways of implementing this. So one thing that we should think about first, what happens to this list if we have an invalid ID? So this one goes through all of the students and it checks if the student ID is equal to what we're looking for. What will this return if we are not inputting the right thing?
Probably unknown object, unknown.
Let's test it out. So I'm gonna print filtered. Two, and I'm just gonna put whatever for it. So filtered is printing out an empty list. So the way we can know if something exists or not, if the filtered list is empty, that means that we haven't found any records that match what we're looking for. So that could be an indication of whether or not our list, our student list exists or contains a student with the ID that we had inputted. And it will also cover wrong input, but I guess if you want your error message to be a little more specialized, then you would have to be you would have to check whether it's a valid student ID type input, which that's a whole other thing. But for now, we can just check if the length of filtered is equal to 0, then we can say return. We can either return none or we can
ID not found.
Yeah, we can return ID not found.
Could that be, go ahead.
Or we can say, please input a valid ID.
Yep. Is there, could that ever be a function subordinate to the get student function that says confirm valid ID?
100%. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can have a separate function and then you can print out whatever you need to print. Yeah, so this one shouldn't cause any issues because we're just grabbing whatever this returns and then we're just printing it out. So since we're sending in a string, everything should still work. So now if I put 2 and I put an invalid number, it says please input a valid ID. And let me test out that it still works with the regular one, which it should because I didn't really change anything. There we go. Now we're getting the record. Do you guys have questions about this? Okay. So now we're able to view an individual student. Let's see how we can add a student. So this is case 3. So we want to add a student. We need to grab some input. from the user, right? So we can say name. We can grab input as just name. And then I can say, what else do I need? ID, student ID. Oops. Since we're inputting a student, we know that the role will always be student, so we don't really need to grab that information. What else does a student have? So name, age, age and password are things that we still need from the user. Age, student age, and then password. Student password. Okay. So now
How will you spike the role in there then? How does the role get, or how does the role get entered then?
the role, so we can just define it here, built in, like role or hard coded. That's also another word that we use. So the role is going to be student.
Good,
And
okay.
I think that's how, it's with a capital S. Okay. Just keep. There we go.
I got a quick question about this. Why would you put it inside this case 3 here instead of like in school.py, like where like add student, like add a method add student sort of deal?
Because I feel like the input and output should not really be handled inside our classes.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
but that seems to, why wouldn't you have delete student, add student, change student as a method under student?
So to delete, add, and change, so change, you could probably have it under student because the student will already exist. But the way we are, so to add and delete students, we keep track of all of our students in the school. So it would make sense to call it from here. But then so to add a student, we do call student, but we call it to initialize a new student. So we will be using student. For delete student, the only place where you would need to delete a student from is from this list. And then to edit a student, then you can have some method, you can have the methods in student allow you to delete. So you can, I mean, right now, because we don't have getters and setters, it's pretty open. You can just change things with the student, but this is where the getters and setters would come into play. So since we have these 4 in person, I would add the getters and setters in here. That way the inheritance, it would just take care of both student and staff.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
What was I doing? Okay, so I'm grabbing all of this information. So my student here, it can take a dictionary of keyword arguments. So I might as well just make a dictionary and hold this information in there. So it makes it easier to create a new student. So I'm gonna say new student equals a dictionary where the role is going to be already built in. So we can start off with that one. So role and then colon student. And so how do I add this input, like whatever is coming from this input, to a key called name in this dictionary? How
You
do
could
I
do new student and then a square bracket.
Mhm.
Yep, name, and then
There we go. And then equals input. Yeah. So we're gonna do the same thing for the ID. Not the implementation. For ID. And then actually for the student, let me see what name it's taking. It's school ID here, and then role password. Okay. Where is it? ID. So this is student ID. New student age. And then new student password. And then we input the password. I'm also gonna put the new lines here so I can actually no, this is good. Okay, so we're going to grab all of this information and then what do you guys think we should do here? Ignore this line.
Probably insert the record into the CSV.
So let's say for now our requirement, we don't care about the CSV. We just used it to initialize our data. But our current record of students is our school. These two lists are our current school records.
Then maybe just display the student we just added.
So if we display it and then we call this list again, will it be there?
No, I wouldn't think so.
Probably not. So
we
what?
We need to add it to the list of students in the school.
Definitely. So this is a suggested method, which I would call it the same. So add student, and then we're sending in the new student as a variable. So we can go into our school now. Define add student. And it will take in our student object. And then we're gonna say, okay, I'm gonna disable this this extension when I'm teaching.
Yeah, that's almost cheating.
It is. So we're not appending this data. We want an actual student object because everything else was a student object. So what do we have to do here?
CP students. CP students. Go ahead.
Initialize the student class to be able to do it.
So student, and then we can just send in the student object because it has all the information that we need. I do think we need to put the star though, because we're taking it in as keyword arguments. So, okay. For here, I'm gonna return the newly created student. So I can just actually say new student equals this. I will append our new student. And then I will return it to print out the records. New students. Also, if we didn't want to return it, we can just send back, we can just say, create student was successful or something like that, or student was successfully added to list.
Could you not have returned the class student with the keyword, whatever that, I forget what that's called, student? Like, could you not have returned that? Yeah, that whole thing. Would that have caused an error?
So you could return this, but then we wouldn't have been able to append to our student list. So it would be the same thing as creating a new student and just returning it to the front to the runner to be displayed, but we're not actually doing anything with it.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm tracking.
So in that case, we would be sending it back there, and then we would have to call another function to add it to the list or something like that. But that would just be an extra layer of complexity that we wouldn't really need. So in this case, it'll create, it'll append, and then it'll just return it so we can print it out. So here, we can actually just print what this returns. And let's test it out. So 3, student name, student ID, 1, 2, 3, 4, age, and then password. Okay. Oh, I think I called.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
under
Here it's supposed to be school ID, right?
yeah.
Why do I have? Okay, that's weird. That was my mistake when I was creating these. So school ID, this was supposed to be school ID. Is it anywhere else? Yeah, it's right here. School ID. And I think I got all of them right. Okay. Now I have to like go back and check everything else. It's not going to be in person for sure. Here, student ID. This is. Wait, did I want school ID or student? Okay, it is school ID.
Could we have just went through the CSV file and changed it to student ID? Because that makes more sense to me than school ID, because the school ID could be for both. You know what I mean?
Agree. Yeah. In that case, yeah, that would be a probably a better choice, because like naming of things is the naming of things would be better. But for now, I'll just keep it because it was less editing for me. Okay, so this one I'm gonna call it school ID. I think that's all I need to change. Okay. So then a new user was created. So the thing is though, with this, the new user was created while the program was running. So when we run the program again, we are only populating the list from our CSV. So what you were saying, Jim, about updating the CSV, that would be the next step. So I'm not going to implement it right now. But when we're adding the student, we could probably have another method here that would be add student. I'll probably call it to CSV, and then this will take in our, it would just need self. No, actually, yeah, self and student.
Does the unpacking operator have to be in that? Does the unpacking operator, the 2 asterisks?
I don't think we need that here. We can take in the entire student as it is.
Because it's in a dictionary.
This would be okay, because this won't be I agree.
But are we adding all the things that are argued in the input, or are we adding the dictionary item? Or is it the same thing?
We should
Is
add
the
the
dictionary-
dictionary. I think we should add the dictionary item because that would be easier to write.
And if you're adding the dictionary item, do we really need the unpacking operator?
Do we need the unpacking? Yes. So if we're adding the dictionary item, actually, I don't know. Something for you to explore.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna write this actual method, but what this would do is access our CSV file and then write to it. So we don't have an actual write to CSV, but that's something you can implement. Okay. So we got the third case down, and now 4 is to remove a student. Case 4. Please input a student ID number. So we want to grab an ID to delete a student. And what will we have to do? That's not what I want to do at all.
Delete student, delete record, delete student record, or
Okay, so we can do it in the school class probably. So CP dot delete student and then send in the ID.
yep.
And here we can say delete student. Oh my God. Okay. So we would probably do a similar lambda. No, we wouldn't. I think there's Python. Actually, let me Google it on screen so we can all see. List, remove element. Let's say list remove object by attribute. So filter. Okay, so I guess a way of it is just to loop through, which is the most basic way. I was thinking that there was a specific function that we can use. Because I know there is a list dot remove, so we can do self dot students. I don't like this anymore. Students dot remove, and it only removes an occurrence of a value. So I need to look up how to specifically remove an object, since we only have the ID. So this is something maybe worth looking into for you guys. But in this case, I'm just gonna say for S in self.students, exactly this. So this is how we can remove an object. Actually, we just loop through it. I think if we use the filter and we take that object, we don't have to loop through the entire thing. So if we filtered and it returned the object that we're looking for, we can say just this self.students.remove. So let's test that out. Actually, I kind of like that approach more. So filtered, we're still looking for the ID. We don't need this, we don't need this. So here we could probably check for this. We can say, please input a valid ID, or we can say, student not found. So this also applies to this, so you can kind of make it whatever you want. So if it's empty, then we have not been able to find one. Else, in this case, we don't really need an else statement, because if this doesn't happen, it will automatically go to whatever's after. But might as well. Then we can say, we can remove the first instance of this. So if for some reason there was duplicate student IDs, it'll just delete the first person. So we're going to remove filtered at 0, which is our first student object. And then we can say student deleted. And yeah, this should be good. I'm gonna say, actually, I'm gonna print out the student's name when they're deleted, just to make sure that I was able to find the correct student. Or I can just print the ID, actually. So to do that, I can say filtered at 0 dot, was it school ID? I think so, school ID. Yeah. Because again, filtered at 0 is going to be a student object that we had found based on the ID. Okay, so let's list the students first. We'll grab this first ID here, and we are gonna remove a student. We can click the number, and nothing happened. Why did nothing happen? Because we're not printing anything.
Yep.
We're returning, but we're not printing. So let's do that again. I'm just gonna grab this, or student ID. There we go.
Wouldn't it be wise then to print, can you follow that up with, can you reprint the list? So what would that be? It would be print student record, print student list again.
Yeah, so now since we've implemented all of this, we should have probably done this in the beginning, but I wanted to show these first, and then we can kind of see that there is an issue where you can only do one thing at a time. Like you can't do multiple instructions, multiple choices. So yeah, we need to build that. Okay, so how do you guys think we can do that? So we're grabbing our selection, and our selection is going to be whatever the user inputs. And
so every time we're done, don't we come back in and just redisplay the list and done with an exercise?
Sure. So how would we do that?
Match selection. Well, you have your cursor there. I would argue at the bottom of each case statement, we redo match selection.
For this one?
Selection input. What would you like to do?
Oh,
so then I suppose
okay,
maybe we do at the end of each case, we do selection then.
At the end of each case, what would you say? Like
selection equals input.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to imagine a way where you redisplay, and so you're not.
We can use a while loop.
Okay. And what could be your condition?
Selection.
Okay. So what is going to stop our program from running?
Case 5.
case 5. So while selection does not equal 5, we are
Yes.
going to want to run our program again. So we're just gonna indent this in here. So we are printing our options out, and then we are grabbing the selection and checking while it's not 5, we do all of this. So what will happen here?
Well, shouldn't we put this was a part I was slightly confused on. Shouldn't we put the selection equals input inside the while loop? Because otherwise it never really gets called again because we're just inside the,
Yeah.
right?
So do you mean up here?
Yeah.
So what will
yeah.
happen if we put this up here?
Well, so then we never really, we would have to initialize selection with an initial value above the while loop.
Yeah. So maybe we can keep this top one, and then after we've done everything, then we can get another input of selection.
Okay.
That could be a way to do that, to do this. Let me just add case 5. Case 5, break. Because we're inside of a loop, so we might as well just break out of it. So why did we have to put this and this up here?
Well, selection does not equal 5. So that's going to march through all of those. And if 5 is not selected, we just continue in a continuous effort to get all of the work done. So 5 is break. What was your question again?
So why did we have to put both this one here and the case of 5?
Well, selection is not 5. Do these things. If selection is 5, then break.
A question. I mean, if we didn't put case 5 there and we left it 1 through 4, and then in the selection at the bottom of the while loop, it would still print out, hey, what do you want to do? And then if we hit 5, would that break us out of the loop because selection then equals 5? Or
let's try it out. 5, it quits us, which is good. So let's say we're doing 2. I always do the wrong one. Okay, so it's the maybe number. Okay, so it prints out the name, and then it says, what would you like to do? And if I say 5, it quits.
Where can you print? You selected the print option. Then if you're gonna remove case 5, where do you put you selected the exit option?
So that was kind of a trick question, because this never actually gets called, because we're checking it here. Yeah. Sorry. So yeah, so if you're already checking that the selection is not 5, since you're grabbing it here, if it's 5, then it won't go into the while loop at all, which is fine because your program will exit. If it isn't, it'll go in here, it'll do whatever it needs to do. The case is never going to be 5 because it didn't go into the loop. So at the end of our cases, our selection happens again. If this is 5, sorry about that.
So at the end of selection, we just put you made an exit choice after on line 42.
No, not necessarily, because this is just getting the next round of input. So we start off with our first, this is our first input. Let's say we want to list all the students at the first time. So
Yeah.
it goes into here, lists all the students, and then it's done with the match case, and then it gets another selection asking, okay, now what do you want to do? And then it goes into the second round of looping. Now, since we have a fresh selection, it's going to check again if selection equals 5 or not. So since we don't need the case 5, what case do we need here?
Isn't there a default case?
Yeah. And what will that default handle for us?
Exit. It prints the exit message.
Not necessarily. So the exit message could actually be printed after the while loop here.
Okay.
Here I can say print you are exiting the program. But so we're handling the case of 5, we're handling the case of 1 through 4. What else can I input? Can I just input letters? I can input any other number.
Invalid entries of some sort.
Yeah. So this case would capture that and allow you to get another round of input from the user because they didn't input a valid like case number or choice number. Do you remember the syntax for this? Is it default? No, it's not.
Yeah, I don't know. I was looking at it this morning. I couldn't figure it out.
Let me see. Oops. Case default. Oh, it's just a singular underscore. That's it. So in this case, yeah, we can just print enter a valid option. And so now if we run it, we can list all of our students. Let me just make this a little bigger. We can list all of our students. Here, all of them get here or get inputted here. Let's say I want to add a student. I'll add myself, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's not my age actually. And then this is my password. So this is just printing out the student that I have created. Probably a better thing to send out is not just the new student, but we can add this student has been added and then print out the information or something like that. So I added my information. If I try to print all the students again, there we go. I see it at the end. So I know that I have been added successfully to the student student list. So I was able to add. Let me try viewing again. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That gives me my information. And then let me try removing the student. So 1, 2, 3, 4. The student was deleted. If I list the students again, I see that it's gone now. And that is it. That is it for now.
Thank you so much for spending your time doing this and helping. This is very nice.
Of course. This obviously can be extended, so you can have a lot of different features added to this. We can, like we said earlier, save to our CSV files if we wanted to. So we can append to the end of this, so we have a record that it keeps track of everything. It keeps track of the students and the changes, regardless of whether we just started our program or if it's been running. So if I added a new student right now and it didn't append it to the list, on the next run, it's going to be the same fresh list of students that I had. That's not students, but you understand what I'm saying. So if I had added it here, if I exited the program and I ran it again, because it's taking all the information from the CSV would be updated. So yeah. Any questions?
I think this is great. And they think this will be up this afternoon?
Yes, I'll upload it as soon as it downloads onto my computer.
Very good. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
And I'll work on spending time in this now.
Awesome.